Okay, so our following example is as follows, just to actually bring you up to speed with tackling the situation that arises when second-hand good gets to be sold subsequently by us having bought it initially as a second-hand good and having claimed notional input. So the question goes as follows. Poly Ltd buys a second-hand printer from Jonesy Ltd at 7,000 rands when the open market value was 10,000 rands. Jonesy Ltd claimed notional input of the tax fraction of 7,000 rand because this would have been the actual cost price, because notional input is based on the lower of cost price or open market value so far as second-hand goods are concerned. And that's how we got the actual notional input of 913 as per the application to the 7,000 rand cost price. So Jonesy subsequently sells the printer to Ponting Ltd based in Australia. Then this basically makes it an export for the following two amounts. So as we spoke about, the actual exception that now kicks in when a second-hand good subsequently gets to be exported as an export good, it doesn't no longer comply with the normal rules of zero rating the actual export of a good, but it now kicks into that rule that we spoke about in saying that now when we are exporting a second-hand good, there's a special rule that we have to apply that says we have to apply output VAT at the rate of cost to the buyer. Right. Just be aware of that rule. Second-hand good, initially we had claimed notional input, and for which SARS did not get an output for. So now we subsequently exporting, we cannot get away with it by zero rating that export. We have to basically use the cost price of that asset for which we had actually initially bought the asset for, and that would be the levied output VAT as per SARS once the actual item gets to be exported. Okay, so the situation goes on to say, so what would be the VAT consequences now? The part A that we have here is we sold the printer, or actually Jonesy, rather, I hope it's Jonesy. Jonesy sold the printer to Ponting Ltd for 12,000 rands. And the other question goes on to say, Jonesy sold the printer to Ponting for 5,000 rands. What are the tax consequences? The tax consequences in the first instance will say these amounts are actually quite irrelevant. Both the 12,000 rands and the 5,000 rands. Why is that? Because the cost price of the item is actually what output VAT should be levied on. And what was the cost price to us? The cost price was actually 7,000 rands, which was the lower of 7,000 rands and open market value of 10,000 rands. That's what we claim our notional input VAT from the actual initial cost price, in which we had claimed the 913 notional input VAT. So therefore cost price to us in this instance, it would be 7,000 rand, exactly like we had in the same scenario. And because we worked it out, we know that we had claimed 913. In this instance, SARS would get back 913, even though in this instance we're selling for 12,000 rands. But what would happen in this instance, since we sold for 12,000 rands? So because we said the cost price is 7,000 rands, we then go on to say 12,000 rands minus 7,000 rands, which is the cost price, right? That will give us a surplus amount of 5,000 rand. What happens to the 5,000 rand? 5,000 rand is then what? It's zero rated. than 0 rated. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. With the second part, whereas we sold for 5,000 rand, this is irrelevant. We won't use the 5,000 rand, but we rather use the 7,000 rand because we have to base it on the cost price. At least SARS will get to be in the net effect with us, because now they want to at least, have a portion of the former VAT that they gave us, which is why they'd be using the actual cost price. Right. So now, if you think about a situation where we spoke about connected persons, because connected persons now, that was what I was trying to basically elaborate on in that last example. I kind of like made an error by using second-hand goods in terms of fixed property. It did not work there. But if you remember the conversation of connected persons, so far as connected person rule, we use the greater of open market value or cost price. So say that we basically in that situation here where we're now saying cost price is now based on the actual cost to us, and now we basically have a connected person situation coming into effect as well. We'll still have to use the cost price because that's what we basically used. We did not use the other value because, even though we're dealing with a connected person situation, which is the next example that we basically elaborate on. Alright then.